Hey everybody, welcome to Songwriting Outside the Lines. Today we're going to talk about lyrics. I want to talk about taking your lyrics to a more polished level. In many cases, we write our lyrics and we get them to where they work. And we say, that's great, got my lyrics ready to work on the melody, ready to perform the song. We can take it further than that. And as an example, I was thinking about that this morning. Recently, I've kind of taken on woodworking because I'm not very much of a handyman, and I want to be able to work on things around the house. So I bought some tools and I got some books on how to do woodworking. And I did my first project, which was a spice rack. And then I upped my game and I built a picnic table. And I was very proud of that. But the thing about the spice rack and the picnic table is you don't want to settle for the wood being rough, especially with the picnic table. I used rough sawn wood, and which means it was straight off getting cut into boards. And on a picnic table, you are going to be sitting on this. You're going to be resting your hands on the top. You don't want to get splinters. You want those surfaces to be smooth. Lyrics are like this. In fact, writing the whole songwriting process is like this, really, but we're going to apply it to lyrics today. So let's take a peek at this. Got a simple piece of wood. I have a sandpaper tool right here. Now, this piece of wood, you can look on one side of it. I don't know if this will show up on the screen, but you can see that it's rough. I mean, I can actually see this with my eyes, but I can also run my finger along this and I can feel the roughness. Now, if I hold it back like this, it looks good. Oh, there's a piece of wood. It's got straight lines. It's flat. Looks good. As I get closer, though, you can see the roughness. If I want this to be smooth, then there are two tests I can give it to see if it's smooth or not. One is to use my eyes. I look and I examine it this way, and this way, and this way, and I am seeing fine little pieces, splinters of wood just barely sticking off of it. This is not a smooth piece of wood. Right now, the whole piece looks rough. So I'm going to take my sander and work on it till I can no longer see the roughness. Okay, looks smooth. But if I run my finger along it, I can feel the little bumps. I can feel the little, they're not really splinters anymore. They're just kind of bumps. I can feel a texture. I want to get rid of that three-dimensional texture. I want it to feel perfectly smooth. So take my sander again, several more swipes, run my finger along it, and now it has perfectly smooth surfaces, but here and there, something triggers my finger, my tactile sense. I can feel a little bumpy right there, missed a little bit right there. Take my sander, keep going, and I do this until I can run my finger along it and nothing jars my senses. Nothing stands out as not belonging there. It goes smoothly from here to here. Move my finger farther along over here, run it down, goes smoothly. Bring my finger over here, run it down, goes smoothly. And when I'm done, I know that I'm done when I can move my finger all over this whole thing, edges everywhere, and I feel no bumps. Okay, with lyric writing, very similar. Now, I need to pause here and say that there are cases where you want there to be bumps in your lyric. There are cases where you want to jar the listener, where they're listening on going, yeah, what was that? Sometimes you want that for effect. You probably don't want that in every song. Usually you want the listening experience to be smooth. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want dynamics. There are times in the song where it kind of goes up and down. You know, you build to a climax of a song. Not really talking about that. I'm just talking about things that don't belong there, things that don't fit. These words sound like they're rough, like they're not polished. You want to be a diligent, what's the word? A persevering, a tenacious craftsperson. A true artist cares about the craft. They pay attention lovingly to the details. If you care about it, you sand gently all along the way until you get it to where it's perfect. Perfect means you get it just where you want it. And not perfect means you're settling for something, saying it's okay, but you put it out there anyway. Let's dive into some lyrics and see this a little bit in action. Here we go. All right, here is a set of lyrics that I am working on. We've currently got a songwriting challenge based on our analysis of a Regina Spektor song. I have totally missed the deadline for that challenge, but that's okay. I'm still working on it, and this is my set of lyrics for it. Now you can see this is a lot longer than lyrics would probably be, and that's okay. This is a rough sawn piece of wood, okay? And this is a lot farther along than it was when I first started on it, but let's talk about how this works. Now, first of all, there is the sawing aspect that you have to do. Wood doesn't just come straight from the tree. It actually has to be sawn. And so I have done most of that work. It used to be that the set of lyrics looked kind of like this, where it's kind of all over the place. There's all this stuff. What I have done is as I have worked on the lyric, there are parts that I know just don't work. So I cut them off and I throw them down at the bottom. And it's important to not just delete the stuff that you don't like. Push it down to the bottom because you might come back and use some of it. There are places in the stuff that I've discarded where I'm like, hey, you know what? That's a good line. I may bring that back up a little bit later and make it fit somewhere. So you don't delete anything, just push it down. Up here at the top, these are the lyrics that I'm thinking are probably going to be in my song. The stuff right here. Okay, now those are verses. I do have down here a chorus that I'm working on. This is very rough right now. But this stuff up here, I like this. This is my square, well-shaped piece of wood. Now, this is a lot of verse. I'm probably going to cut some of this out. I'm going to have to decide what I'm going to keep. This is good. You have choices. So write yourself a lot of lyrics, more than you're probably going to use, and polish all of them. And then in the end, when you go to make your song, decide which ones you want. Pick the best. Okay, now I have done some sanding on this already, but it's not there yet. Let's go down here and let's look at a piece that has not really been polished. Here's one right here. Let's see. Let's read it. And were there really lions? Were there monkeys wearing gowns? The clowns had guns, oh tigers. Oh tiger, now the lights are going down. The spotlight spins on dusty air until it finally falls, and someone says, "Dear tiger, there were no protocols." All right, now that's actually not as bad as I thought. The only problem is, content-wise, it kind of takes the song in a different direction than I want to, and so I push it down here. Let's look at this as far as a polishing goes. Now, you might, if you haven't been following our songwriting challenge, you're going, "What in the world is this song about?" Don't worry about that for now. This stuff actually makes sense in the context of the actual song. But let's look at it from a polishing standpoint. And were there really lions? Were there monkeys wearing gowns? The clowns had guns, oh tiger. Now the lights are going down. The spotlight spins on dusty air until it finally falls, and someone says, "Dear tiger, there were no protocols." Let's look at this. You remember how with a piece of wood, there's different ways to look at it? You can look at it, well, there's only one way to look at it, but there's different ways to examine it. One is to look at it with your eyes, and the other one was to run your fingers along it. And those two tests are what helps you know if it's smooth or not. Similar with lyrics. One way to look at it is with the sense. You know, does this line make sense? And if it doesn't fit in content-wise, then you want to get rid of it. The place where this stands out for me is right here, this line right here. There were no protocols. That just doesn't flow sense-wise with the rest of the lyric. And were there really lions? Were there monkeys wearing gowns? The clowns had guns, oh tiger, now the lights are going down. The spotlight spins on dusty air until it finally falls and someone says, dear tiger. There were no protocols? Everything up here is talking about a circus, about a performance. Lions, monkeys, the clowns. Now this word right here stands out, but that's meant to be there. Remember I said sometimes you want there to be bumps, something that jars? The clowns had guns. What does that have to do with the circus? Well, this song is about people shooting animals, and so and it's supposed to be a horrible thing. And so this is a bump that is in my lyric on purpose. That's meant to jar a little bit. But continuing on, you've got lights going down, you've got spotlights, dusty air, till it finally falls, you know, like curtains falling. I know that's not in a circus, but you get the idea. Someone says, dear tiger, this is who I'm talking to. But this last line, there were no protocols. The word protocol is not something you associate with performance or circuses or things like that. Protocols you think of with businesses or, you know, military or formal things. So sense-wise, this line stands out as being rough. It's a splinter. It's a bump that doesn't belong there. Okay, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at lyric is, does it flow off the tongue? Now, in poetry, this is not as big a deal. But with lyrics, someone has to sing this. Someone has to be able to flow from line to line and sing it without chomping down on their tongue or spitting with their lips. You don't want there to be too many p and s in there that's going to cloud it up. You can get away with some of it, but you want to be careful about that. Now, this lyric, for the most part, flows, again, until we get to this line, and it just doesn't flow anymore. It's choppy. Listen as I read this again. And were there really lions? Were there monkeys wearing gowns? The clowns had guns, oh tiger. Now the lights are going down. The spotlight spins on dusty air until it finally falls, and someone says, dear tiger, there were no protocols. There's a couple places in here. Spotlight spins. That's a lot of S's. I want to be careful about that. That might be considered a bump. I'm deciding to keep it because spotlight spinning is something that's very much a part of circus performances. You can picture the spotlights going all over the place when the circus starts. So I'm decided to keep that. Clowns, right here again, clowns had guns. Had guns. That going from the D to the G is rough. The clowns had guns. Going from the D to the G. You can, if you try and say that yourself, the clowns had guns, that can be kind of rough. So that might be something I change a little later. The clowns carried guns or something to fix that. Okay, that's something that's going to require some sanding. Everything else finally falls. Alliteration is great. Finally falls. Spotlight spins. That part I like if it weren't S's. Really lions, that L to the L is great. Monkeys wearing gowns, not so much. Okay, but then you get down here. Someone says, dear tiger, there were no protocols. Protocols is a kind of a bumpy word. Protocols. It does not flow. There were no protocols. Especially it does not flow with this lyric. All this stuff is really smooth until you get to the word protocols. And so this line does not fit context-wise, and it does not flow off the lips. So this is a line I'm definitely going to sand out of my lyric. Okay? And I think that's enough of an example. I think you get the idea. I don't need to go through all this other stuff and show you. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is a lyric that I could settle for. It works. That fits in my song. I can write a melody around it. But if I really care about my lyric, I'm going to pay attention to those details. Right there, right there. If I want to say I'm crafting this lyric lovingly, I care about whether those two consonants flow together. I care about whether or not that is a choppy word that fits in with the rest of this lyric. I care about whether or not protocols is something that really has to do with circuses. Okay? So that's the point of this lesson today, is that you want to care enough about your lyric that you're willing to sand it until it's perfect. Don't settle for it just working. Sand it, polish it, care about those tiny bumps. Examine it in multiple different ways from different perspectives until it is smooth the way you want it. All right? That's all I have for you today, guys. Happy songwriting, and I will see you next time.